In a world where technological progress and cultural changes seem to dominate every aspect of our lives, something profound and disturbing is happening in the shadows: the abandonment of faith. Perhaps you've noticed, in conversations with friends or debates on social media, how belief in something greater has become almost a rarity, a relic of a past that many consider outdated. But is this distancing truly a sign of evolution? Or are we actually losing something essential? This reflection brings to light a discussion that few dare to confront: the erosion of faith in our society and the devastating consequences it may bring. If you've ever wondered why so many people, especially the youth, are drifting away from their spiritual roots, this is the opportunity to understand what's at stake and how we can reverse this trend. When apostasy is mentioned, it evokes a deep reflection on each individual's spiritual journey. When we look at the term, which has Greek origins meaning divorce or abandonment, we realize that it goes beyond a simple change of thought. It is a deliberate distancing, a rupture with something that was once fundamental. Imagine someone who, for years, has built their life around a set of beliefs, and suddenly those foundations crumble. What remains? Perhaps a void, but also an opportunity for reconstruction or, unfortunately, complete loss of faith. This phenomenon is not confined to isolated cases. It is rooted both in society and within religious institutions. The abandonment of faith is not simply a choice not to believe, but often the result of external influences that gradually erode belief. Just as a plant, if not watered and nourished, wilts and eventually dies, faith also requires constant care. And it is at this point that deceiving spirits and false teachings come into play, offering easy and convenient answers that lead to ruin. When faith is abandoned, the impact is not only felt by the individual but echoes throughout the community around them. The distancing from faith can be seen as a wave that spreads, affecting families, friends, and even strangers. However, the most alarming aspect is how this apostasy is, in many cases, subtle, almost imperceptible. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process, often masked by an appearance of normality. And it is precisely this normality that sets the stage for something even more concerning, as we will see next. The global phenomenon of apostasy reflects a silent yet profound transformation that is occurring in various parts of the world. With increasing secularization, faith, which was once a unifying force in societies, is now being set aside by many, especially among the youth. This distancing is no coincidence. It is part of a larger movement where religious traditions are questioned and, in many cases, rejected. For example, in the United States, a significant number of millennials no longer identify with any religion, preferring a life detached from traditional beliefs. This global trend is not limited to the United States but spreads like a wave across different cultures and countries. It's as if the world is going through a phase of reevaluation of values that were once considered unquestionable. In Brazil, for instance, there has been an increase in the number of people who declare themselves without religion, indicating a paradigm shift that could profoundly alter the social structure. Churches, which were once the center of communities, now struggle to attract and retain believers, especially the younger ones, who seek answers in other sources. This change, however, should not be seen merely as a simple distancing from religion but as a shift in mindset that affects all aspects of life in society. Secularism promotes a worldview where spirituality is placed in the background, and materialism and individualism take center stage. And as this view spreads, it opens up space for deeper questions about the purpose of life and the search for something that goes beyond the tangible. But will this path bring the answers people so desperately seek? Or are we, in fact, paving the way for something much greater? Modern culture, increasingly dominated by secular narratives, has promoted the idea that religion, far from being a force of unity, is a source of division and intolerance. This discourse is strengthened in the media and academic environments, where religious traditions are often portrayed as obstacles to progress and individual freedom. Imagine a classroom where students are encouraged to question everything, but where faith is often treated as something archaic, outdated. It is in this scenario that the rejection of religious principles, especially Christian ones, gains strength. This cultural movement is not just a passive rejection of religion, but often manifests in hostile attitudes and legislation that seeks to limit religious expression in the public sphere. For example, in many Western countries, we see increasing pressure to remove religious symbols from public spaces, such as schools and government buildings. This is not just a matter of neutrality, but reflects an attempt to distance religion from everyday life. And for those who maintain their faith, this pressure can create an environment where expressing their beliefs becomes an act of courage. However, this cultural shift also raises an important question. What replaces religion as a source of morality and purpose in people's lives? Without the guidelines offered by faith, many turn to ideologies or philosophies that, while offering some comfort, may not provide the same depth of meaning. This gap leaves many people lost, searching for something that can fill the void left by the absence of a higher belief. And it is at this point that contemporary culture, in trying to deconstruct religion, may end up paving the way for an even more radical transformation, which we will explore next. As the world increasingly moves away from religious values, the ground begins to be prepared for the arrival of something or someone that can fill the spiritual void left by apostasy. The discourse of Lamartine Pasella warns of the imminent danger of the Antichrist's rise, who will find a society already prepared to accept his leadership. Imagine a world where most people, disenchanted with religious institutions, are searching for a new direction, something or someone that brings immediate answers and easy solutions to the complex problems of humanity. This scenario is not just theological speculation. It is reflected in the attitudes and choices we see daily. With increasing secularization and the devaluation of Christian principles, society becomes increasingly vulnerable to charismatic leaders who promise redemption but actually lead the masses down paths of deception. The Antichrist, in this narrative, will not present himself as an obvious villain but as a savior, a leader who offers peace and prosperity in exchange for submission to a new system of beliefs, distanced from God. This preparation for the arrival of the Antichrist is not something that happens overnight. It is a gradual process that begins with small concessions, with the acceptance of ideologies that undermine faith, and with the promotion of a world where God is seen as irrelevant. As people move away from faith, they become more susceptible to being led by someone who appears to have all the answers. And when this leader emerges, will people be prepared to resist? Or will they already be so distant from their spiritual roots that they will accept anything that seems to promise a quick solution? While society in general distances itself from faith, an equally disturbing phenomenon is happening within religious institutions themselves. Apostasy is not only manifesting in the streets but invades the temples, creating divisions and conflicts that weaken the church from within. Imagine a community where the faithful, who should be united by faith, find themselves increasingly at odds, not just over doctrines but over the very essence of what it means to be Christian. This internal conflict is fueled by power struggles, inflated egos, and a growing lack of brotherly love. This fragmentation of the church is not just theoretical. It is visible on social media, where religious leaders attack each other, exposing their differences in public, often in the name of truth. However, this exposure does not strengthen faith but further alienates believers, who begin to question the legitimacy of their institutions. When pastors and leaders who should guide the flock dedicate more time to fighting each other than to strengthening the faith of their followers, the result is an environment of distrust and disillusionment, where many end up abandoning the church. This internal conflict is, in many cases, more destructive than external attacks on religion. Apostasy within the church not only weakens the community but also demoralizes the faithful, who come to see faith as something flawed and full of contradictions. The church, which should be a refuge of peace and unity, becomes a battlefield where love and compassion are replaced by resentment and division. And as these internal struggles continue, the church becomes increasingly vulnerable to external influences that seek to erode its essence, setting the stage for even greater challenges in the future. Throughout this journey, we have explored how the abandonment of faith is affecting both society and the church. But now the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue to observe from afar as faith fades? Or will you take action to strengthen your own spirituality and that of those around you? Think about your daily actions. Are they contributing to building a more united community based on solid values? Or are they feeding divisions and skepticism? Perhaps it's time to reevaluate your priorities, to seek a deeper connection with what you believe in, and perhaps inspire others to do the same. Why not start now? Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and keep learning more about how we can face these challenges together. Every new piece of knowledge is a step towards transforming not only your life but the lives of everyone around you. Don't miss this opportunity.